They say that the Tao are those who never tire of walking, but few in America know that their journey began with a solemn vow in the deep forests of China and ended among the mist-covered hills of Vietnam. If you think you have heard many stories about ancient migrating communities, hold on tight, because the story of the Tao is not just about survival, but an epic about identity, faith, and the power of rebirth over thousands of years. A small people, but with hearts so big that anyone hearing their story must ask, how could a community travel so far and guard their soul for so long? This story does not only tell the past, it tells about people, about the steps leaving the northern mountains, braving dangers, crossing borders, arriving in Vietnam, then taking root, growing, and becoming one of the peoples with the richest spiritual life in all of Asia. And today we will begin to peel back each layer of those memories. Imagine you are standing among the Huangshan Mountains of China more than a millennium ago. The air so cold your breath turns to mist, and in the valley, the first Tao people are gathered around the fire. They did not know that. It was those nights by the glowing fire that would become memories passed down through generations, guiding them toward a new land, where they would be called by a name full of pride, Vietnamese Tao people. According to legend, their ancestors descended from King Ban, the leader who guided the people through great floods, tribal wars, and dynastic upheavals. But behind that legend lies a harsh historical reality: social turmoil during the Song dynasty, territorial expansion, border conflicts, and assimilation pressure that forced the Tao into lengthy, exhausting migrations. From Guangxi province, Guizhou, Yunnan, Hunan, they were driven to leave in small groups, clan by clan, following deep forests and mountains in search of a place to belong. Those caravans of people wearing indigo clothing, red garments, carrying with them reed pipes, drums, ancient scriptures, genealogies, and age-old taboos. They left China not to find a rich land, but to find a place where they could continue being themselves. And then, after many years of crossing mountains, rivers, natural borders, they saw before them a vast green land, what later they would call Vietnam. There, a new journey began. When the first Tao group set foot on the land that would later become Vietnam's northern border, they had no idea they were stepping into a new era. What they saw first was not a warm welcome, but wave after wave of mist-covered mountains. Massive natural walls that were both threatening and protective, shielding them from the turmoil of the north. Yet somehow, in that raw and unforgiving wilderness, their hearts instantly recognized it. This was a place where they could live as Tao people, untouched by any outside force. Their migration was not a single journey. It came in waves, one after another, over the course of centuries, most notably between the 14th and 18th centuries. Each clan, each group of Tao leaving China carried with them only a few essentials: a small amount of rice seed, a handful of tools, their traditional clothing, sacred talismans honoring King Ban, and most importantly, the ancestral stories. Those stories were their spiritual anchor, helping them stand firm through thick forests, wild beasts, illness, and unknown paths. As they descended into the first mountain slopes of what is now Vietnam, they chose to settle deep within the forests of Cao Bang, Lang Son, Hajiang, Lao Cai, and Tuyen Quang. These were not fertile, flat lands. They were rugged and remote, places where only those with unbreakable will could survive. But for the Tao, the mountains and forests were friends. Steep cliffs did not scare them. Dense jungles did not turn them back. They were used to living with wild nature, where every sound of running water, every leaf, and every winding trail carried meaning. Over time, the first homes began to appear: wooden stilt houses built from forest timber, roofed with palm leaves, perched on the slopes. From the towering peaks of Hajiang to the peaceful hillsides of Bacan, the Tao began sowing their first seeds, clearing their first fields, and lighting the fires that would one day become symbols of a tightly bonded community. But the most extraordinary thing was not the houses they built, it was their connection to the land itself. The Tao believed that every place they passed through has its own spirit. They drove sacred wooden stakes into the ground and held ceremonies to ask permission from the forest spirits and stream gods before settling. To live, they had to blend with nature, not conquer it. And that is how they managed to survive for hundreds of years in places where many other peoples could not. From those humble early communities, the Tao gradually spread to dozens of provinces, from Lao Cai, Yanbai, Lai Chau, and Sanla, all the way to Than Hoa and Nhan. Every new step forward was a fresh story of resilience. Wherever they went, their language, clothing, and rituals took root, as if the land of Vietnam had always been waiting for them. But make no mistake, their new life was far from peaceful. The early years were full of hardship. The Tao had to fight jungle illnesses, endure a harsh struggle for survival, and sometimes even prove to local communities that they came not to compete, but simply to live. Yet, with humility, solidarity, and deeply spiritual rituals that bound them to the land and sky, the Tao gradually earned respect. They became an inseparable part of the northern highlands of Vietnam. Once they made it through those early difficult years, the Tao people entered the most important phase of their journey, truly taking root on Vietnamese soil. This was the time when all of their cultural, spiritual, religious, and ceremonial values, the very things they had carried with them from the north, were rebuilt, preserved, and adapted to their new environment. And it was through this process that diverse, vibrant Tao communities in Vietnam were formed, all unified by a shared spirit. Places like Ha Giang became one of their largest settlements. Even on the towering, jagged limestone mountains, they managed to grow corn, cassava, beans, and even carved out terraced rice fields that shimmered like golden streams in the sky. In Lao Cai, they established villages along crystal-clear streams, from Bat Shat and Sapa to Muong Quang, each village carrying the distinct cultural notes of different Tao branches. Red Tao, White Pants Tao, Tuyen Tao, Tan Phan Tao, Long Tunic Tao. In Yanbai, they settled along the layered mountain slopes of Van Chan, Tram Tao, and Mu Kang Chai, where early morning fog wraps around stilt houses and the echo of the leaf flute calling friends rings across the valleys. In Tuyen Quang, Bac Can, and Cao Bang, they chose deep forest areas where they could clear land for farming and perform sacred forest worship rituals, some of the oldest traditions they have. What is remarkable is that wherever they went, they adapted in their own unique ways, yet never lost their core identity. They lived alongside the Tay, Nummang, and Thai, but never blended to the point of disappearing. The Tao are peaceful and rarely in conflict, yet fiercely protective of their culture. And because of that, they earned deep respect. In daily life, the Tao still organize their communities by clans. Each clan has its own shaman and a set of ceremonial books written in ancient Tao Nam script, a writing system so old that only a few can still read it today. Yet it serves as a cultural treasure, preserving their lineage from King Ban. On the nights of the Tet Dance Festival, firelight flickers across their brightly hand-embroidered garments, every stitch carrying sacred symbols, shapes of mountains, rivers, the sun, and protective deities. Their clothing is also how they tell the world they have never forgotten who they are. The vibrant reds, deep indigos, bold white patterns on their vests and headdresses, these are not just decorative. They are cultural maps. By looking at what someone wears, a Tao person can tell which branch you belong to, where you live, and which path your ancestors took. By day, they work the fields, and at night they light candles to worship their ancestors. The next morning, they haul sacks of rice and bundles of firewood up the rocky slopes. Life is hard, but it is full of faith. Because the Tao believe that wherever there is the sound of ceremonial drums, the scent of smoky kitchens, and families gathering under one roof, that place is home. And Vietnam, in some miraculous way, has become their true home. Once the Tao had settled along the mountain slopes of northern Vietnam, they entered a new chapter, building their own economic, spiritual, and social life. No longer wandering migrants crossing borders, they had become true residents of Vietnam's highlands. People who lived closer to the sky than the earth, who breathed persistence, wore identity like armor, and held tradition as their deepest root. Tao villages perch precariously between clouds and stone. In the mornings, fog rolls down from the highest peaks, blanketing each rooftop like a massive white shawl. The Tao call this the breath of the mountain, and they believe that the closer one lives to the sky, the stronger one becomes. On these steep hills, Tao men go deep into the forest for timber, gather medicinal herbs, and set small animal traps, while the women carry corn and firewood on their backs, grow flax, and weave fabric. No day is easy, but every day is beautiful enough to make them grateful for life. Their farming methods reflect a remarkable adaptation to the land. Where the soil is steep, they build terraced fields. Where the land is poor, they rotate crops, clearing a patch of land with fire, cultivating it for a few seasons, then letting it rest while moving to a new area. Every corn kernel, every cassava stalk, every upland rice harvest is the fruit of sweat and generations of hard-earned knowledge. The Tao do not try to force nature into submission. They live in harmony with it, listen to it, and let it nourish their children in the most natural way. Beyond farming, the Tao are also known for their mastery of herbal medicine. After generations living in the forest, they know which plants heal wounds, which leaves detoxify, which roots restore strength. These remedies are passed down orally, written on dew paper, or preserved in the memory of village healers. Even today, regions like Sapa, Hoang Sufi, and Bao Lac are well known for the Tao herbal bath, a legacy that has become a cultural trademark. Every evening, as the sun stains the distant mountains red, the sound of children's laughter echoes in the courtyards, the rhythmic pounding of rice mortars thuds through the village, dogs bark in chorus, all blending into a peaceful symphony, a gentle reminder that no matter how hard life is, the Tao still hold on to their simple joys. But the most sacred part of Tao life lies in the moment the hearth is lit. Around that fire, they tell stories of their ancestors, retell the legend of King Ban, and recall the long migrations they once endured. The children sit in awe as if being lifted out of time and carried back to the past. Because for the Tao, the hearth is not just for cooking. It is the heart of the home, the place that reminds them where they come from and why they must keep their identity alive. Day by day, generation after generation, the Tao have grown into an inseparable part of Vietnam's cultural identity. They are no longer just a migrating people. They have become guardians of the mountains, stewards of the forests, keepers of tradition, people who live among the clouds, but whose hearts are firmly rooted in the earth. As the Tao settled in Vietnam across generations, what made them truly remarkable was not just their great migration, but the incredible diversity within their own community. Few people know that the Tao are not a single unified group. They are a constellation of branches and subgroups, each with its own cultural nuances, belief systems, and traditional attire, yet all share a common soul rooted in the legend of King Ban. In Ha Giang, the vivid red garments of the Red Tao blaze like living flames in the mountain mist. Red Tao women are known for their intricately embroidered red headscarves with long tassels that cascade down their shoulders, creating an image that is both radiant and dignified. They are famous for the Tet Dance Festival, where dozens of young men perform sacred dances through the night to honor their ancestors and pray for peace. A bit farther south in Lao Cai, you will find the Tuyen Tao, dressed in deep indigo with neatly rounded headwear. They live close to streams, have extensive knowledge of water-based herbal medicine, and are known for their gentle nature. In Sapa, the White Pants Tao stand out with their striking contrast. Bright white trousers paired with dark indigo tops, a style that stops travelers from around the world in their tracks for photos. The Than Phan Tao live in the remote highlands, far from trade routes, which has helped them preserve some of the oldest rituals. The Cap Sack ceremony, a spiritual rite of passage for Tao men, is still performed here with full ritual books, sacred instruments, and age-old chants. In the dark forest night, torchlight flickers, drums beat, gongs echo, and ritual songs carry through the air, like voices from 1,000 years ago returning through time. In Bac Kan, Tuyen Quang, and Tai Nguyen, the long tunic Tao offer a completely different impression. Long indigo robes flowing to the heels, adorned with refined patterns and red embroidered threads running down the body like a lifeline connecting generations. They are renowned for their embroidery traditions, each stitch a story, a lesson, a quiet tribute to their ancestors. This diversity goes far beyond appearance. It lives in every song, every custom, every way they organize family and community life. Even in the Tao language, subtle differences exist between branches, like branches growing from the same ancient tree. And yet, the most moving and mysterious part is this. No matter how different they may be, they always recognize one another as Tao, with just the sound of a ritual chant, a glimpse of the ancient Tao Nam script, or the way a shaman wields the wooden sword in the Kapsak ceremony, they know immediately they come from the same source. In every village, every hamlet, every stilt house perched among the mountains and forests, these vibrant branches of the Tao live side by side like pieces of a mosaic. No single group dominates the others. Each contributes to the cultural tapestry of the Tao in Vietnam, diverse but unified, colorful but harmonious, ancient but still breathing in every moment. And it is this very diversity that keeps the story of the Tao forever fresh. Each village is a book. Each outfit is a new chapter. Each ritual is a living lesson in history. If there is one thing that sets the Tao apart from the dozens of ethnic groups scattered across the Truong Son mountain range, it is their incredibly rich system of rituals. Step into any Tao village and you will feel it immediately. Here, the past is still alive, the ancestors are ever present, and every ceremony is a bridge connecting thousands of years of history. The Tao do not preserve their culture with lofty slogans. They preserve it through action, through ritual, through the rhythms of life repeated from grandparents to grandchildren. One of the most important ceremonies is the Cap Sack ritual. It is not merely a rite of passage. It is the moment when a Tao man formally steps into the spiritual world of his people. In the dark of night, surrounded by flickering firelight and the echo of gongs and drums through the mountains, a young man kneels solemnly before the ancestral altar. The shaman chants from ancient Tao Nam texts while ceremonial dances spiral around him, reenacting 1,000 years of cultural memory. After this ritual, the young man is no longer just an adult. He becomes a keeper of the Tao soul, someone entrusted with carrying tradition forward to future generations. Then there is the unforgettable Tet Dance Festival, a ritual so unique that witness even once will stay with you forever. During this ceremony, young Tao men dance through the entire night. Each movement tells a story of labor, of war, of love, and of the journey of their ancestors who once survived a great flood. The powerful, decisive steps declare that the blood of King Ban still flows strong. As the drums thunder and the red tassels on their headscarves sway in the firelight, the Tao become one with their spiritual universe. In daily life, forest worship, village blessings, and seasonal prayer ceremonies are all carefully maintained. For the Tao, the forest is not just a source of livelihood, it is a living god. Before clearing land for farming or cutting down a large tree, they always hold a ritual to ask for permission. It is not superstition. It is a deep understanding that living in nature means respecting it. And it is precisely this philosophy that has allowed them to survive for centuries in some of the harshest mountainous regions. Another extraordinary feature is their ritual books and the Tao Nam script. While many ethnic groups have lost their traditional writing systems over time, the Tao have preserved theirs, a sacred script passed from shamans to apprentices. Their ritual books, written in black ink on dew paper, with soft curved or angular characters depending on the Tao branch, are priceless cultural treasures. Within each book lies more than just ceremony. You will find epics, ancient tales, life philosophies, herbal remedies, and cosmic beliefs. It is no surprise that the Tao are one of the few ethnic groups whose rituals have remained nearly intact over centuries. For them, ritual is not a performance, it is existence itself. It is the thread that never breaks, binding them to their ancestors. And each time the sound of drums, gongs, and reed pipes echoes through the mountains, the Tao know they are not just living for today. They are continuing the story of an entire people. If rituals are the soul of the Tao people, then the family and the home are the heart that nourishes that soul across generations. No Tao village exists without a fire burning day and night. No Tao community can thrive unless the clans gather together. And no Tao child grows up without hearing their grandmother's stories, their mother's gentle advice, or the sound of a leaf flute echoing through the hills each night. The Tao live in stilt houses or earthen-walled homes, depending on the region. In the high mountains of Hajiang, they choose earth houses to keep warm. In Bak Kan and Yen Bai, they prefer stilt houses to avoid dampness and wild animals. But no matter where they are, every Tao home has one unchanging center, the hearth placed in the middle of the house. It is not just a place for cooking, it is where the entire family gathers. Where fathers tell sons stories of their ancestors, where mothers teach daughters their first embroidery stitches, where shamans read ancient texts during sacred nights. For the Tao, the hearth is a symbol of warmth, unity, and continuity. The Tao place great importance on clan connection. Each clan has its own origin, its own founding ancestor, its own ritual texts. During major events, weddings, house building, capsack ceremonies, relatives come together to help without question or expectation. A village may have only a few dozen rooftops, yet the spiritual strength is so powerful that anyone arriving can feel it right away. They live as one unified body, with each member an essential part. Equally important is the role of Tao women. They are the ones who weave fabric from dawn until night, dye it in deep indigo throughout the seasons, and embroider intricate patterns month after month. Every thread, every motif is handmade, patient, precise, as if they are stitching the diary of their people into their clothing. They may not speak in poetic words, but one glance at their hands reveals an entire cultural legacy being passed down without pause. Tao children grow up in nature, but they are not wild. They know how to identify poisonous plants, how to walk the forest safely, and the tales of forest gods and stream spirits. Each evening, they sit by the fire, listening to stories of mountain crossings, the origins of King Ban, and the clans that journeyed across borders to reach Vietnam. No school teaches these lessons, but they learn them with their hearts. They grow up proud, knowing they are a link in an unbroken chain that stretches from their ancestors to the present. Within each household, the shaman holds a place of deep respect. He is not a fortune teller, as some outsiders might assume. He is the archivist, the historian, the philosopher of the village. He guards the ritual books, preserves ancient knowledge, and maintains the codes of conduct passed down through generations. During major ceremonies, he reads aloud from texts written in the Dao Nam script, a writing system that to outsiders may look like cryptic symbols from a forgotten civilization. It is thanks to this structure of family, clan, and shaman that Dao culture has not faded, even through migration and isolation in the most remote mountains. Every home is a cultural fortress. Every fire is a living library. Every Tao person is a page in a book that began long ago and is ready to be handed to the next generation. And that is why the life of the Tao is not simply about survival. It is a journey of holding on to their origins with all the love and resolve that a people can give to their identity. When the first Tao villages began to rise amid the forests and mountains of Vietnam, they were not just building houses, planting seeds, and performing rituals. They were embarking on a much more profound journey, integrating without losing themselves. That is the greatest challenge for any migrating people, how to become part of a new land while preserving the essence of who they are. And the Tao did it naturally, gracefully, and with quiet strength. In those early years in Vietnam, they lived alongside the Thai, the Nung, the Hmong, the Thai, communities that had long called the mountains home. There were differences in language, customs, farming techniques, wedding traditions, and spiritual rituals. But instead of letting those differences become walls, the Tao chose to open their hearts. They learned from the locals how to grow rice more effectively, how to select better corn seeds, how to farm terraced fields more scientifically. In return, the Tao shared their forest knowledge, their herbal medicine, their skills in treating wounds, and their healing leaf bath recipes. This cultural exchange helped the Tao earn a place as gentle, younger siblings of the mountains. They did not fight for land, did not provoke conflict, and never imposed their culture on others. They integrated through labor, through sincerity, and through an extraordinary ability to adapt. Over time, Tao villages became hubs connecting different ethnic groups. Sunday highland markets were not just places to sell Tao brocade. They became where the Tao bought salt from the kin, traded horses with the Hmong, and exchanged honey with the Tay. Languages mixed, customs blended, but the remarkable thing was this: the Tao identity never disappeared. It simply became more flexible, more gentle, and more in tune with the land they now called home. Tao children began learning Vietnamese at an early age. But at home, they still listened to Tao stories, sang Tao songs, and spoke to their grandparents in their native tongue. In a completely natural way, the Tao created a bilingual life, one language for integration and one for their roots. Because of this, Tao youth could speak with kin traders at the district market, work with local officials, yet still understand the ritual texts read during the capsack ceremony, and absorb the wisdom of their ancestors. Thanks to this way of integrating, the Dao have been recognized as one of the ethnic groups that best preserve their cultural identity in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government has formally acknowledged their contributions to the nation's cultural diversity. Major festivals like the Tet dance, the Cap Sack ceremony, and seasonal prayer rituals have been preserved and listed as intangible cultural heritage. Dao shamans are now invited to participate in major cultural events where their ancient chants and the rhythm of their mountain drums spark fascination from people around the world. The new generation of Dao has gone even further. They have brought Dao culture to the lowlands, into the cities, and even abroad through community-based tourism. In places like Sapa, Hoang Su Phi, and Bac Ha, Dao culture has become a tourism highlight, where American and European visitors are moved by the uniqueness of their clothing, the elegance of their ceremonies, and the warmth of their people. But the most beautiful thing is how the Dao preserve their identity without closing themselves off. They are like a stream flowing over mountain rocks, soft, adaptable, but persistent, never losing their shape. Here in Vietnam, the Dao are not only guardians of the past, they are authors of the future. When you look at a map of Vietnam, it might come as a surprise to realize that the Dao, once a nomadic people wandering through the mountains of China, have now become one of the most widespread communities in the northern highlands. Every region they have passed through carries their unique mark. In song, in dress, in rituals, in language, in their deep knowledge of medicinal herbs. And this distribution did not happen by chance. It is the result of centuries of careful selection, adaptation, and putting down roots. In Ha Giang, the Dao are concentrated in areas like Hoang Su Phi, Quan Ba, Bac Quang, and Vie Xuyen. Dao villages cling to steep mountainsides, where the terraced rice fields look like painted masterpieces, glowing golden in the harvest season. Hoang Su Phi is especially famous for the Red Dao and Than Phan Dao, two groups that have preserved some of the oldest rituals in Dao culture. In Lao Cai, the Dao live mainly in Bat Sat, Sapa, Bac Ha, and Muoz Quang. This region is a cultural center for many Dao branches, the graceful Tuyen Dao with their rounded headpieces, the striking White Pants Dao, whose white trousers stand out against dark indigo tunics, and the vibrant Red Dao with their red scarves and long tassels. Today, many American visitors to Sapa still recall the image of Dao hosts lighting fires in homestays, telling ancestral stories in Dao language sprinkled with charming bits of Vietnamese. Further south in Yen Bai, the Dao live in Tram Tao, Van Chan, and Mu Kang Chai, lands of rugged mountains and poetic beauty. Their houses perch on hillsides where Dao children grow up among birdsong, the sound of streams, and stories shared by the fire. In Tuyen Quang and Bac Kan, they are found mostly in deep forest areas like Nahang, Chiem Hoa, Ba Bay, and Pac Nam. This is where the long tunic Dao thrive, renowned for their intricate embroidery and weaving. Many traditional garments from this region are considered among the most beautiful across all highland ethnic groups. In Cao Bang, the Dao live near the border, along limestone mountain ranges. Life is tough here, but steeped in tradition. Forest rituals and village ceremonies are preserved nearly unchanged, so much so that you feel as if you are seeing the Dao from 200 years ago, just now with electricity and cell service. In Tai Nguyen, Bac Giang, and Phu Tho, the Dao live more scattered, often alongside the Tay and Nung. Yet even in mixed communities, they maintain the Dao language at home and still observe major rituals like the Cap Sack ceremony, weddings, and the Tet dance festival. What is especially unique is that the Dao do not only live in high mountains. Over time, many families have moved down to the lowlands, near rivers and major roads, to do business and build livelihoods. Among the younger generation, some go to university, some run homestays, some work as tour guides, and others have gone even further, to Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh City, bringing Dao culture into Vietnam's urban centers. Today, the Dao can be found in more than 60 provinces, districts, and towns across Vietnam, a number few other ethnic groups can claim. But the true wonder is not in their wide reach. It is in the fact that wherever they go, the soul of the Dao remains intact. Whether in a stilt house high in the mountains of Ha Giang or a small roadside home in Tai Nguyen, as long as there is Dao singing, ritual drums, ancestral books, and hand-embroidered clothing, then that place is still a Dao homeland. And through this wide presence, Dao culture does more than survive, it spreads. As Vietnam enters an era of rapid integration and development, many ethnic minorities face the risk of losing their cultural identity. Traditional clothing is replaced by mass-produced garments. Sacred rituals are no longer fully practiced. Young people leave their villages for work and gradually forget their mother tongue. But surprisingly, for the Dao people, this has not happened in the way many feared. In fact, modern times have become a catalyst, a spark that has awakened Dao culture once more, stronger and more confident than ever before. In recent years, many Dao communities have come to realize that their culture is not just a heritage, it is a priceless asset. The mysterious Dao Nam script, the stunning beauty of their traditional clothing, the unbroken rituals, the rich herbal knowledge, all these things make the Dao stand out among Vietnam's dozens of ethnic groups. And in this age of globalization, that uniqueness is exactly what draws attention. In Sapa, Hoang Su Phai, and Bac Ha, Dao homestays have sprung up, not to change their identity, but to showcase it to the world. Tourists from the United States, Canada, France, and Australia sit by the fire, mesmerized as Dao shamans chant from ancient texts, watch Dao women embroider traditional garments, or experience the famous Dao herbal bath, a healing tradition that now fits perfectly with the global wellness trend. In Hajiang, Dao communities are hosting the Tet Dance Festival on a larger scale, welcoming both tourists and researchers. What was once a private ritual is now a cultural bridge, allowing the world to witness the enduring spirit of the Dao. It is no longer a hidden ceremony. It is a cultural celebration, but still sacred, unmistakably Dao. In Highland schools, Dao language classes are being introduced. Local teachers teach children the Dao alphabet, traditional songs, and even how to read short passages from ritual books. What was once considered outdated and difficult is now cherished. Because the Dao understand that language is the key to preserving the soul of their people. Dao clothing, too, has been reborn. Many young Dao women are now embroidering traditional outfits, not just for New Year festivals, but to sell to tourists, to wear for performances, or to feature in photography. Some have opened small weaving studios, teaching embroidery to village children, passing on the craft so that not a single ancestral stitch is lost. Patterns once thought confined to the past now appear in modern life, on jackets, scarves, handbags. In the case of the Dao, this cultural commercialization has not distorted their traditions. It has made them stronger, more alive. In Cao Bang and Bac Kan, Dao communities are reviving forest worship ceremonies, rituals that reflect the Dao's centuries-old philosophy of green living. Local governments are supporting them, tourists are fascinated, and the Dao themselves are proud that their ancestors' philosophy is now a lesson for the world. Respect nature, so nature will sustain you. Today's Dao youth attend universities in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, even overseas. But whenever there is a major celebration, they return to their villages, don their radiant traditional clothes, and take part in the rituals just as their ancestors did. This is a generation that knows who they are, that feels no shame in their roots, but instead holds a deep, quiet pride. And when we look at the Dao people in this digital age, we see something powerful. They are not desperately clinging to the past. They are preserving it by walking into the future with their identity as their compass. They are not afraid of being absorbed because they know exactly who they are, where they come from, and what defines them. In a world that changes by the day, the Dao have kept hold of their heart. In today's modern life, where people turn to hospitals and Western medicine as their go-to solution, the Dao have held firmly to a body of traditional knowledge that commands respect from any medical system. Their deep understanding of forest herbs. This is not just a scattered collection of folk remedies. It is a vast, intricate system of knowledge passed down over hundreds of years. For the Dao, this wisdom is like blood in their veins, not written in textbooks, but etched into the memory of every healer, every household, every clan. In the forest, the Dao do not see plants the way most people do. They see the nature of each plant, which ones are hot, which are cool, which treat joint pain, which ease colds, which calm the nerves, and which are meant for women after childbirth. There are leaves that can be identified just by their scent, roots that create a slight tingling when touched, signs that they contain natural anti-inflammatory compounds. This knowledge is passed down during long treks into the forest, where fathers take sons into the mountains, point to each leaf and say, "This one heals. That one is dangerous. The other is for wounds." And among all this knowledge, the most extraordinary treasure is the taauv herbal bath, a healing tradition that has amazed the world. A steaming wooden tub filled with dozens of boiled forest leaves, releasing a fragrance that is both powerful and soothing, wrapping the body in warmth from the inside out. The Tao believe that bathing in herbal water does more than cleanse the body. It washes away fatigue, sadness, and the bad energy that builds up over time. For them, the herbal bath is healing for both body and soul. It is no surprise that today, in places like Sapa and Hong Su Phi, visitors from the United States, Canada, and Japan travel halfway around the world just to soak in a Tao wooden tub, to experience a therapy so ancient that modern science is only beginning to understand it. Medical studies have confirmed that many of the herbs used by the Tao, like amomum, cinnamon, galangal, wild mugwort, contain compounds that reduce inflammation, relieve pain, improve circulation, promote deep sleep, and soothe the nervous system. But beyond herbal medicine, the Tao also possess survival knowledge of the mountains that few other groups have preserved. They know how to read animal tracks, how to find water hidden in rocks, how to build shelters in the jungle, how to avoid toxic winds in treacherous mountain passes. It was this knowledge that allowed their ancestors to cross thousands of kilometers to reach Vietnam. And it is the same knowledge that keeps Tao communities safe in the wilderness today. What makes this wisdom so precious is not only its healing power, but the worldview it reflects, a philosophy woven deep into Tao culture. To survive, one must understand nature. To be healthy, one must live in harmony with the earth and sky. Do not fight the forest, become part of it. Today, as the world talks about green living, wellness, and harmony with nature, the Tao simply smile. Because what the rest of the world is trying to rediscover, they have been practicing for 1,000 years. And it is this herbal knowledge, both practical and mystical, that has become a bridge between the Tao and the modern world, helping them preserve the essence of their culture, while opening a door for the world to step into their villages. The Tao do not simply live in the mountains. They dwell within a vast spiritual world where every story and legend serves as a bridge between humans and the universe. To them, the world is not only inhabited by the living, it is shared with ancestors, deities, forest spirits, and invisible forces that quietly follow each step. It is this belief that has given them the strength to endure thousands of miles of migration, to survive illness, hunger, and the countless upheavals of history. At the center of the Tao's spiritual universe is Ban Vuong, a legendary leader whom they believe to be the common ancestor of the entire Tao people. Legend has it that Ban Vuong was not only a king, but the one who guided the Tao through a great flood, saved them from extinction, and opened the path to new lands. In Tao consciousness, Ban Vuong is at once a father, a divine protector, and the ultimate symbol of unbreakable resilience. No Tao ritual is complete without the presence of Ban Vuong. His image is on the altar. His name is written in the ritual books, his spirit invoked in every prayer. And it is this belief in Ban Vuong that has helped the Tao preserve a sense of unity, no matter where they have migrated, no matter how many mountains or borders separate them. The Tao's spiritual world is not limited to ancestors. It includes the forest, the streams, the rocks, the mountains, each with a soul of its own. The Tao never enter the deep forest without first asking permission, often through a whisper or a single stick of incense. To them, the forest is a mother, the stream a younger sibling, the mountain a father, and the stones ancient gods lying in sleep. That is why the Tao live in harmony with nature, not cutting trees recklessly, not hunting without reason, not destroying forests for short-term gain. Tao ghost stories are not filled with horror or fear. They carry lessons. They tell of lost spirits that will lead you astray if you disrespect the forest, of sacred streams that only give water to those who live in gratitude, of forbidden woods reserved for ancestors where the living must not tread carelessly. These stories are not meant to scare children. They are moral teachings, ways for the Tao to pass on humility and respect for the world around them. Another vital pillar of Tao spirituality is the role of the Thay Kung, the shaman. He is the one who can read the Nam script, who understands the language of the spirits, who connects the village to its ancestors. The Thay Kung performs rituals not only for Kapsak ceremonies, weddings, and house blessings, but also in times of crisis, during outbreaks, poor harvests, or when tragedy strikes. He is the one who speaks to the heavens and the earth, a keeper of ancient wisdom whom every Tao family depends on. During these rituals, the drum, the gong, the leaf flute, and the chanting weave together into a symphony both sacred and powerful. Foreign visitors may listen with curiosity, but to the Tao, this is the sound of origin, the sound they have known since infancy. Spirituality does not make the Tao superstitious. On the contrary, it gives them a strong moral foundation, gratitude for their ancestors, respect for nature, unity in community, and integrity in daily life. They may not speak in philosophical terms, but every action they take reflects this deep-rooted worldview. And it is this rich spiritual world, warm, compassionate, full of symbols, that has become the cradle preserving Tao identity through all the storms of history. When people think of the Tao today, they often picture mountaintop villages, bright red traditional garments, and ancient rituals echoing through the forests. But if that is all we see, we miss something vital: the new generation of Tao, those who are bringing their culture down from the highlands, across borders, and into the digital world. They are living proof that culture never stands still. It always finds ways to adapt, evolve, and reach out in ways their ancestors could never have imagined. Young Tao born after the year 2000 are no longer confined to their home villages. They study in Hanoi, Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh City. Some major in tourism, others in ethnic studies, business, or communications. But what is truly remarkable is that no matter how far they go, they carry with them a steady belief: I am Tao. That confidence is what powers a new generation, energetic, modern, and rooted in their identity. In places like Sapa, Bakha, and Huang Sufi, many young Tao are running homestays, cafes, and trekking services, but all with a common thread. Tao culture is their foundation. The stilt houses are clean and welcoming, but retain traditional architecture. The hearth still burns each evening for guests to hear tales of Ban Vuong. Tao garments hang proudly at the entrance so that anyone who arrives knows exactly who they are. These young people are both entrepreneurs and culture keepers, and this blend creates an irresistible charm for international visitors. Some have gone even further. They bring Tao culture to TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. They film their mothers slowly embroidering traditional dresses, capture the Kapsak ceremony at midnight, or record the steaming Tao herbal baths. And in just a few years, these videos have gained hundreds of thousands of views from the United States, Canada, Australia, and Japan. To global audiences, Tao culture is not just exotic. It is beautiful, profound, and deeply human. And it is the younger generation who serve as the bridge, helping people on the other side of the world see that beauty. Others have taken the academic path. They become cultural researchers, anthropologists, and preservationists. They document ritual books, digitize the Nam script, and build digital libraries to safeguard their people's knowledge. What once existed only in the minds of shamans is now being preserved through technology. This intersection of tradition and innovation has created a stronger continuity than ever before. In larger Tao villages in Hajiang, Laokai, and Tuyanquang, classes are being opened to teach children the Tao language, embroidery, and ritual songs. What is special is that the teachers are young Tao who studied in the cities and returned home because they know the future of their people is in their hands. No one loves Tao culture more than these youth, who have seen the vast world outside and come to understand the true value of their own home. Some Tao youth have launched small fashion brands, blending traditional patterns with contemporary style. Modernized Tao skirts, embroidered jackets, linen bags dyed with signature indigo, all help Tao culture enter city life without losing its soul. Foreign buyers purchase these items not just because they are beautiful, but because they can feel the spirit woven into every stitch. And some have brought Tao culture abroad, performing at cultural festivals in Japan, joining exchange programs in South Korea, showcasing at tourism expos in Germany and France. Every time they step on stage in their brilliant red garments, the spotlight glinting off hand-embroidered tassels, it is more than a performance. It is a declaration. The Tao are still here, still strong, still telling our story to the world. In the past, their ancestors crossed mountains to find a place to survive. Today, their descendants cross borders to find a place to share their culture. The young Tao generation is writing the next chapter of the story Ban Vuong began, a story no longer confined to mountain slopes, but one that now soars far and wide. As the Tao people stepped into the 21st century, their way of life began to change faster than ever before. Concrete roads now link villages to district centers, electricity reaches every home, and 4G signals allow the Tao to live stream their festivals and sell embroidered crafts to the world, all from a single smartphone. And yet, the most remarkable thing is this. In the midst of such sweeping change, their most essential values have remained completely intact. Take a look at a Tao village in Hong Su Phi on an early morning. Men in fresh indigo tunics heading to the fields, women in brilliant red outfits embroidering on the porch, children running through a mist so thick it feels like the mountain is breathing. And right beside them, a young Tao man uploads a TikTok video showcasing the Kapsak ceremony, leaving thousands of viewers in the United States amazed by the mystery and beauty of this culture. Two worlds, traditional and modern, sitting side by side, blending so seamlessly that the boundary between them disappears. In places like Sapa, Baka, Nahang, and Ba Be, Tao villages have become well-known community tourism destinations. Visitors sleep in stilt houses, bathe in herbal waters, eat thang ko, sip corn liquor, and listen to Tao stories by the fire at night. But what's most important is that the Tao have not turned their culture into cheap entertainment. They preserve the full meaning of every ritual, every song, every garment. Guests are welcome to observe, to take photos, to learn, but never to distort what is sacred. Their economy is evolving in positive ways. The Tao have learned to turn their herbal knowledge into products like bath blends, shampoos, essential oils, and foot soak remedies, now in high demand from customers in the United States, Europe, and Japan for their natural, safe properties. Many families have risen from poverty thanks to tourism, textiles, or online business. The new roads help them move goods faster and reach broader markets. Yet despite these economic changes, the Tao still maintain their communal lifestyle. When a family builds a new house, the entire village shows up to help. When something big happens, the sound of drums gathers everyone together. When someone falls ill, not only does the doctor arrive, but also the shaman, performing spiritual rites to balance body and soul. It is a blend of modern medicine and ancient healing that reflects the Tao's holistic view of well-being. In education, Tao children now attend formal schools more consistently than ever. Some win national awards, others become engineers, police officers, teachers, or doctors. But perhaps the most touching thing is this. No matter how far they go, they still speak their mother tongue, and they proudly wear Tao clothing during school festivals. This is living proof that culture does not hinder progress. On the contrary, it is the foundation that gives the Tao confidence to step into the world. Technology has also strengthened their connections with one another. Tao people living in southern Vietnam, overseas, even in the United States or Canada, can now watch live streams of the Kapsak and Tet dance ceremonies back home. They share photos of traditional dress, tell stories of their ancestors, and host online cultural exchanges. Tao culture is no longer confined by geography. It has become a continuous, borderless flow. And through all of this change, one thing has not changed: their pride in their roots. The Tao have never asked themselves whether they should let go of tradition to modernize. They know that it is tradition that has sustained them for thousands of years. They know that identity is strength. They know that the past is the foundation of the future. They know that Ban Vuong is not just in their ritual texts. He lives in every action, every decision, every breath of the Tao people today. And it is this seamless blend of tradition and modernity that makes the Tao one of the most resilient and fascinating indigenous communities in Asia. A people who live among the mountains, but whose hearts are wide open to embrace the world. If there is one thing that makes the story of the Tao people stand out among the thousands of migration tales around the world, it is not how far they traveled, how many mountains they crossed, or how many generations they survived. The most remarkable part is this: no matter where they went, they brought themselves along. From the freezing mountain slopes of Guangxi and Guizhou, from the chaos of the Song, Ming, and Qing dynasties, from the quiet caravans crossing the Vietnam-China border hundreds of years ago. The Tao came not to find fertile land for farming, but to find a place where they could continue being themselves. A place where they could preserve their rituals, their language, their clothing, and the spirit of Ban Vuong. And they did exactly that, not through force, but with endurance, humility, and a deep love for their roots. Today, when we look at Tao villages stretching from Hajiang, Lao Cai, Yen Bai, and Cao Bang to Tuyen Quang, Bak Kan, Tang Nguyen, and Phu Tho, we see not just survival. We see a living, breathing, evolving identity. We see Tao children performing the Tet dance in village courtyards, Tao mothers embroidering patterns passed down from great-grandmothers, and young Tao live streaming capsack ceremonies to viewers all the way in California or New York. We see a culture not worn down by time, but strengthened because it has learned how to adapt. The Tao have walked a long road, from the forests of China to the rooftops of Vietnam. They have endured separation, upheaval, and hardship. But they have never lost faith in their ancestors. They have never allowed their identity to fade. And if you ask, what has kept the Tao people going strong for thousands of years? The answer is simple, yet profound. They have always known who they are. In a world changing by the hour, where many peoples have lost their language, their ceremonies, their traditions, the Tao have held on to the fire within. And it is that fire that has lit their long journey, from Ban Vuong to today, from the past into the future. The story ends here, but the journey of the Tao does not. They are still walking, still living, still writing new chapters on mountaintops, in valleys, in cities, and even in places they have never set foot. And one day, when someone asks you about the Tao people, maybe you will share this story, a story of a small people with great strength, who live humbly but proudly, quietly, but with the resilience of the very mountains that raised them. The Tao have come far. The Tao have grown strong. But most importantly, the Tao have never lost their roots. And that is what makes their journey one of the most extraordinary in all of Asia. A story that audiences in the United States or anywhere in the world will find impossible to walk away from. Because when the story ends, the heart stays open, and the Tao keep going.